Good morning, students. In this session, we will discuss about some important points from the D block, F block, that is transition elements and coordination compounds, right? Now, let us discuss about the atomic radius and members. You know that these D block elements were basically called as transition elements. Earlier, these D block elements, as they are in between metallic S block and non-metallic P block, they expected these D block elements as responsible for the transition of metallic character of S block to non-metallic character. In that sense, they named these elements as transition elements. Later, they noticed that presence of vacant d orbitals and unpaired d electrons is responsible for some characteristic properties of these elements. In that sense, they had changed the definition of transition elements. So the final definition of transition elements is elements which possess unpaired d electrons, either in elemental state or in their +2 oxidation state, which is a common oxidation state of these transition elements. So that's the basic definition of transition elements. And with respect to this, all D block elements except zinc, cadmium and mercury were treated as transition elements. Zinc, cadmium and mercury, as they have D10 configuration in their penultimate shell, even in their +2 oxidation state also, they do not possess any unpaired d electrons. That's why the zinc, cadmium and mercury, the last elements in every series, were treated as non-transition elements. Now, these transition elements are of basically 4 series, namely 3D series, 4D series, 5D series and 6D series. The members of 3D series are scandium, titanium, vanadium, chromium, manganese, iron, cobalt, nickel, copper, zinc. And 4D series are yttrium, zirconium, niobium, molybdenum, technetium, ruthenium, rhodium, palladium, silver and cadmium. Members of 5D series are lanthanum, hafnium, tantalum, tungsten, rhenium, osmium, iridium, platinum, gold and mercury. And when it comes to the last series, 6D series, actinium, rutherfordium, dubnium, seaborgium, nailsborium, hussium, meitnerium, domstermatium, roentgenium, and this was recently named as copernicum. Earlier it was Eka mercury. Now, when it comes to their atomic numbers, scandium varies from 21 to 30, 36 and 37, 38 are here. 4D series ranges from 39 to 48, 48 plus 6, 54, 55, 56 and this starts with 57. The next element we expect it to be 58, but 58 to the 70, 58 to 72, they belongs to 71, they belongs to lanthanide. So it starts from 72, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 80. 86 and 87, 88 belongs to P and S block respectively. 89 is actinium, 90 to 103 again belongs to actinides, 104 to 112. Okay, you should have a knowledge of these atomic numbers also. So and so element belongs to which series? That may be a question. For that sake, one should have a knowledge of these atomic numbers, at least starting and ending atomic numbers. Now, why they are called 3D series, 4D, 5D and 6D series? It is with respect to the penultimate shell in which the electron is present. Actually, the basic definition of transition element, another definition of transition elements is these elements possess incomplete ultimate shell as well as penultimate shell. Incomplete ultimate and penultimate shell, and as ultimate S electrons and penultimate D electrons both were employed for valency, their valency shell electronic configuration is given as NS1 or 2, N-1D 1 to 10. This is the configuration for both D block as well as for transition elements. And when it comes to the atomic radius trend, usually from left to right, atomic radii decreases due to increase in effective nuclear charge. But here what happens, in 3D series, atomic radius decreases from scandium to chromium. Scandium to chromium it decreases because effective nuclear charge dominates a shielding effect. Effective nuclear charge dominates shielding effect from scandium to chromium family. And from chromium up to copper, there is no much variation, 0.01 nanometers. See, from chromium to copper, almost the same radius will continue. This is because effective nuclear charge is compensated by screening effect. Effective nuclear charge is compensated by screening or shielding effect. And again, from copper to zinc, what happens? Screening effect dominates effective nuclear charge. Shielding effect dominates effective nuclear charge, and there is a diffusion of a completely filled D10. That's why electron cloud moves away from the nucleus. So there is a slight increase in size from copper to zinc. Even from nickel also you can observe this trend, slight increase in atomic radius. Follow NCERT given atomic radius value strictly. And then even in the other series also, actually this 3D belongs to third penultimate shell, and ultimate is fourth shell. 3D series belongs to fourth period, 4D series belongs to fifth period, 5D belongs to sixth, and 6D belongs to seventh. Okay, even in other series also a similar trend can be noticed, but one element before and here and there. So yttrium to niobium atomic size decreases, niobium to palladium almost the same size continues, and from palladium onwards atomic size can be increased because of diffusion of electron cloud away from the nucleus. The same way lanthanum to tantalum, tantalum to platinum, platinum to mercury, there is an increase in size. So this is one important trend in atomic radius. This is all. The reason is, for the first spell, effective nuclear charge dominates the shielding effect. In the middle spell, effective nuclear charge is exactly compensated almost by screening effect. And in the last spell, screening effect dominates effective nuclear charge. And this is about atomic radii. Follow strictly the NCERT given values. When it comes to melting and boiling points, see, these are all metals. All these are metals, less active than S block, slightly more active than the corresponding P block, some of the P block metals. And melting and boiling points, when it comes to this, in metals actually, in metals, especially in transition metals, there is a small comparison actually between transition metals and other group metals. In transition metals, melting points especially is directly proportional to extent of metallic bonding, which is directly proportional to number of unpaired d electrons that they can contribute for bonding. With increase in number of unpaired d electrons in the valency shell, extent of metallic bonding increases, and obviously melting point also increases. Now when it comes to the configuration of scandium family, they have 4s2 3d1. So they can contribute only one unpaired d electron for bonding. Likewise 4s2 3d2, 3d3, 3d5 up to chromium family, as number of unpaired d electrons, even number of unpaired electrons also. Chromium family has 4s1 3d5. Totally it has 6 unpaired electrons. Because of having more number of unpaired electrons, see melting point curve. This is for scandium, this is for titanium, vanadium, chromium. Scandium to chromium family, melting points increased and then decreased to manganese, and again rise to iron, cobalt, nickel, copper, and zinc has least melting point. Of course, it is the only liquid metal in this block. Now, the question is, even though manganese has 5 unpaired electrons, its melting point is less. Why? Won't it form more metallic bonding, more extent of metallic bonding? It forms, but the problem is, due to its complex structure, it is unable to form higher extent of metallic bonding, even though it has a more number of unpaired electrons. In an expected manner, the metallic bonds and covalent bonds cannot be formed by manganese because of the complex structure, and thus it possesses low melting point. Okay, so it is with respect to their cubic lattice. It is with respect to the cubic lattice of these elements. In that cubic lattice, because of the complex structure, extent of metallic bonding is less than expected. Hence, manganese possesses lower melting point than expected. So, such anomalies wherever is there, we have to remember them. Next, when it comes to oxides, another important question that comes is oxides. Basic oxides. See, basic acidic and amphoteric, scandium, Usually more the oxidation state in metal oxides, more is its acidic character. With increase in oxidation state, acidic character of oxide increases, even covalent character also increases. Like you can notice that. See, acidic oxide, manganese is in highest oxidation state. Vanadium V2O5 plus 5, that is the highest oxidation state. What is vanadium configuration? Scandium, titanium, vanadium. 4s2, 3d5, totally 4s2, 3d3. Right, totally 5 electrons it can contribute for bonding. So vanadium is in plus 5. In its highest oxidation state possible, V2O5 is acidic in character. Chromium also, it is plus 6 in this particular compound. Chromium is plus 6 is the highest oxidation state. It is acidic. Manganese is also plus 7 is the highest oxidation state. Usually, when a central atom is in its highest possible oxidation state, acidic character will be more and also covalent character also will be high. Now, you have to remember these basic oxides and amphoteric oxides, because already we studied the point that for any element, its higher oxidation state indicates the more acidic character of the compound. So we need to remember these amphoteric oxides, and the lower oxidation state corresponds to basic oxides also, right? See, these are some more points from NCERT one has to concentrate. Ionization potential, usually from left to right, ionization potential increases due to decrease in size. Here, even though there is a small decrease in size and almost size remains constant, there is no such gradual decrease actually in transition elements because of the factors we discussed. Ionization potential values are between S and P block elements, and their energy values varies between 6 to 10 electron volts. And there is a slow increase in ionization potential. This is the point we have to concentrate. There is a slow increase in ionization potential. Actually, even though size decreases, one expect more increase. But here the reason is a new electron is being added to penultimate shell. With increase in atomic number, a new electron is added to penultimate shell. So when the penultimate electrons increases, they screens the outer electrons which are existing already. When outer electrons are not attracted by the nucleus, they can be removed easily. But here what's happening, the nuclear charge and shielding effect both are compensating one another. That's why there is only a slight increase in their ionization potential. For example, one more point to be noticed. See, these are the questions from NCERT values I'm repeating. First ionization potential of scandium and titanium are nearly same. First ionization potential of vanadium, chromium and manganese are nearly same. Means the very slight difference is there. Similarly, first ionization potential of iron, cobalt, nickel and copper are fairly close to one another. So by looking at the values, one can notice that one. And stability of various oxidation state, when it comes to this one, elements with 3d0, no electrons in D or D5 or D10. Elements with 0, D0 or D half filled or D completely filled configurations are fairly more stable than the other configurations. For example, titanium plus 4, whose configuration is 3d0, is more stable than titanium plus 3, whose configuration is 3d1. Similarly, Mn plus 2, 3d5 configuration is more stable than Mn plus 3, whose configuration is 3d4. And then usually higher oxidation states of 4d, 5d and 6d series elements. 6d is not discussed in NCERT, but still people have already learned about it. Higher oxidation states of 4d, 5d and 6d series elements are relatively more stable than the same higher oxidation states of 3d series elements. Higher oxidation states of heavier transition elements are fairly more stable than the same higher oxidation states of 3d series elements. For example, if you consider, see, molybdenum higher oxidation state is 6, plus 6 is it's a possible higher oxidation state. Technetium also plus 7 is the higher oxidation state, and tungsten also plus 6 is the highest possible oxidation state. These two elements belongs to 4d series. Tungsten and rhenium belongs to 5d series. Tungsten and rhenium belongs to 5d series. See, in their corresponding higher oxidation state, they are more stable. They are very highly stable. Whereas, you consider chromium, which belongs to same molybdenum, which comes above molybdenum, it is. Chromium is in its higher oxidation state, plus 6, CrO4 minus 2 chromate. Manganese is in its higher oxidation state, +7. They both belongs to 3D series, but they act as strong oxidizing agents. Means what? In these oxidation states, they oxidize others and they themselves gets reduced to lower oxidation states. So from this, one can understand that higher oxidation states of the corresponding elements are more stable in case of heavier transition elements 4D, 5D and 6D than the corresponding higher oxidation states of 3D series elements. So such points were clearly given in NCERT which one has to concentrate. So for this D block, F block and transition elements, NCERT is the criteria. Next. Strongly reducing states do not form fluoride and oxide. Means the oxidation state in which the substance or species acts as reducing agent do not form fluoride and oxide, but may well form heavier halides. Heavier halides means bromide and iodide. Heavier halides means bromide and iodide. Once again I am repeating, strongly reducing states do not form fluorides and oxides, but may form bromides and iodides. Whereas strongly oxidizing states form fluorides and oxides, but not bromide and iodide. Let us see some examples regarding this. Let us see some examples regarding that. Vanadium in its +5 oxidation state acts as a strong oxidizing agent. So vanadium belongs to 3D series element, just now we discussed. See, it forms vanadium pentafluoride, vanadium tetrachloride and vanadium tribromide, but does not form VBr5 and Vi5. You know why? Vanadium in its +5 oxidation state is an oxidant, strong oxidant, because that vanadium +5 will oxidize Br- to bromine, I- to iodine. Once again I am repeating, vanadium +5 acts as a strong oxidant. It forms vanadium pentafluoride, tetrachloride and tribromide, but does not form pentabromide and pentahalide. Just now we discussed. In a strong oxidizing state do not form halides in that particular oxidation state. Why? See, as Br- and I- will be converted readily to bromine and iodine. Therefore, VBr3 and Vi3 are formed, but not VBr5 and Vi5. Similarly, when it comes to the other hand, F5 is formed. You should raise a question. F5 is formed because even though vanadium +5 is a strong oxidant, it cannot oxidize more electronegative and small size fluoride anion. See, V +5 is unable to oxidize highly electronegative and small anion F-. That's why VFI is being generated. Similarly, highly electronegative and smaller O- also will be formed in the form of oxides, because they cannot be oxidized. As they are smaller and more electronegative, they cannot be oxidized by highly oxidizing vanadium +5. So VO4 power -3, X -8 is equal to -3, X is equal to +5. That's the highest oxidation state. And Cr +6 and Mn +7. See, these are the higher oxidation states which are formed in fluorides and oxides usually. And when it comes to lower oxidation states, the nature of these oxides and halides with respect to the oxidation states is also important as per the data given in NCERT. Lower the oxidation state, more ionic and more basic in character. Lower the oxidation state, more ionic and more basic is the character. Higher oxidation state means usually more covalent and more acidic usually. Now let us see a small list of compounds. In +2 to +7 we had taken. In +2 state, see titanium chloride, vanadium dichloride, these are ionic in character. Even titanium oxide, monoxide, vanadium monoxide, chromium monoxide, MnO, these are all ionic and basic, because they are in +2 oxidation state. So among the oxidation states possible, if they are in lower oxidation states, they are more ionic and more basic. And with increase in oxidation state, ionic character decreases, basic character also decreases. See, titanium trichloride, vanadium trichloride, less basic and less ionic and less basic. Similarly, Ti2O3, V2O3, Cr2O3, Mn2O3, less ionic, and they show sometimes amphoteric character also. See, these two are particularly. Manganese is in +4 oxidation state. It is less ionic and amphoteric. And with increase in oxidation state, see, basic character is decreasing, amphoteric character is shown, and covalent character is increasing, covalent character is increasing, acidic character is also increasing. For example, if we take titanium, titanium plus 4, that is the highest possible oxidation state. TiO2 is more covalent and most acidic among the oxides of titanium. Similarly, vanadium shows plus 5 as its oxidation state. V2O5 is more covalent and more acidic. Similarly, manganese Mn2O7, it is more acidic and more covalent in its character. This is a small study with respect to its oxidation states. Let us discuss about potassium dichromate as a continuation. See, potassium dichromate K2Cr2O7 can be prepared from chromite ore by the reaction of the compound with a base, either sodium hydroxide or sodium carbonate in presence of oxygen. See, it gives sodium chromate Na2CrO4, which is extracted with water. This is extracted with water, leaving a residue, ferric oxide. Now, the sodium carbonate extracted will be acidified with the sulfuric acid. It will be acidified with the dilute sulfuric acid. It should be acidified with the dilute. It should not be concentrated, dilute sulfuric acid, as a result of which we will get sodium dichromate. Sodium dichromate. And the byproduct is less soluble sodium sulfate. As it is less soluble, it gets crystallized and can be separated by filtration. Now, this sodium dichromate, when treated with potassium chloride, gives our required potassium dichromate. So, in this way, potassium dichromate can be obtained. Now, this potassium dichromate, we all studied that as an important oxidizing agent. See, this is the equation responsible for its oxidizing properties in acidic medium. It acts as a strong oxidizing agent in acidic medium, where potassium dichromate dissociates to give reduces to give potassium sulfate and chromic sulfate Cr plus 3. Here chromium is in plus 6 state, reduced to plus 3 state, along with the generation of 3 moles of nascent oxygens. Even this is also important for us. Number of moles of nascent oxygens generated by so and so oxidizing agent. In that way they will ask us. Now you see, so these nascent oxygens are responsible for its oxidizing properties. This oxidizes alcohols to aldehydes and aldehydes to acids. Usually under normal condition, alcohol will be directly oxidized to carboxylic acids, but if alcohol is taken in large excess in presence of potassium dichromate, then the major product will be aldehyde. So this is about its oxidizing nature, how it oxidizes. Now when it comes to the other properties, oxidizing properties of potassium dichromate oxidizes sulfur dioxide to the corresponding sulfate, potassium sulfate and chromic sulfate. Chromium is again reduced to plus 3 state. Sulfur is in plus 4 state in SO2, C oxidized to plus 6. In sulfate it is in plus 6, you are all aware of that point. Similarly, we have potassium dichromate, when heated, decomposed to give chromate with the chromic oxide, and when treated with the KOH it gives potassium chromate. And there is another important reaction with cold concentrated sulfuric acid and hot concentrated sulfuric acid. Cold concentrated sulfuric acid gives potassium bisulfate with chromic oxide with the CrO3, and hot concentrated sulfuric acid gives potassium sulfate and Cr2O3. So with cold concentrated bisulfate will be the product, and with hot concentrated sulfate will be the product. And then we have it oxidizes all halides to the corresponding halogen, like it oxidizes chloride to chlorine, bromide to bromine, iodide to iodine, like this. Potassium iodide is oxidized to iodine, and this also oxidizes ferrous to ferric, sulfite to sulfate, nitrite to nitrate, chloride to chlorine, and sulfide to sulfur. Sulfite means SO3 minus 2, say here it is specified. Sulfite is oxidized to SO4 minus 2, whereas sulfide is oxidized to sulfur. It is from minus 2 to 0 oxidation state. About this change in oxidation number of electrons lost, gained, there one question is possible. And when it comes to the structure of this dichromate and chromate, see, chromate CrO4 minus 2 is tetrahedral in structure, whereas the dichromate also contains 2 tetrahedral units joined with one common oxygen. Now let us discuss about potassium permanganate. So about potassium permanganate, it can be prepared from the ore pyrolusite. So when pyrolusite is treated with potassium hydroxide or a base potassium carbonate, it gives a green mass of potassium manganate. This is called as potassium manganate, where manganese is in +6 oxidation state. So Mn is getting oxidized to potassium manganate. Now this potassium manganate is extracted with water and then oxidized to potassium permanganate either by reacting it with chlorine or with ozone or with carbon dioxide. We can oxidize potassium manganate to potassium permanganate either by using chlorine or by using ozone or by using carbon dioxide. These are the corresponding reactions. In method with carbon dioxide, again we can get back this MnO2 precipitate. Now this potassium permanganate can also be obtained by the electrochemical method of this potassium manganate. When MnO4 minus 2 is oxidized using electrochemical method, see in this way potassium ions and manganate ion, MnO4 minus 2 is manganate. At anode, manganate, green manganate gets oxidized to purple color permanganate with the loss of electrons, oxidation. And at cathode, H plus ions, because of less discharge potential when compared with K plus, H plus ions gets reduced to H2 gas. So in this way, potassium permanganate can be prepared from the ore pyrolusite. These are chemical methods of extracting permanganate from manganate. This is electrochemical method. And when it comes to the nature of potassium permanganate, it is one of the strongest oxidizing agents we already studied. It acts as an oxidizing agent in acidic, basic and neutral medium, and in neutral medium finally, as basic conditions are also pronounced, alkaline nature of the final mixture is pronounced, it is also called as weak basic medium. So while acting in acidic medium, manganese, which is in +7 oxidation state in potassium permanganate, gets reduced to Mn+2, where the difference in the oxidation state, that is called as valency factor, is given as 5. When valency factor is 5, equivalent mass can be given as molecular mass by valency factor. It is 158.1 by 5. Now when it acts as an oxidizing agent in strong basic medium, potassium permanganate will be reduced to potassium manganate, where manganese is in +6 oxidation state. Difference in the oxidation state is 1 and equivalent mass is molar mass by 1. While acting in a neutral medium or weak basic medium, manganese changes from +7 to +4, where the difference in the oxidation state is +3. Then valency factor is 3, equivalent mass is 158.1 by 3. So these are about properties of potassium permanganate in different medium. See, in neutral medium, potassium permanganate decomposed to give MnO2, means gets reduced to give MnO2. Manganese is changing from +7 to +4, as we discussed earlier. Valency factor is 3, and this equation is responsible for its oxidizing properties in neutral medium. For example, these three are some oxidizing properties of potassium permanganate. It oxidizes hydrogen sulfide to sulfur. In neutral medium, potassium permanganate oxidizes sulfide to sulfur. Manganese sulfate to MnO2, manganese sulfate Mn+2 to Mn+4. Manganese is getting oxidized from +2 to +4, whereas this manganese is getting reduced from +7 to +4. +7 to +4. This is +2 to +4. This is +7 to +4. This is a reverse of a disproportionation reaction called as comproportionation reaction. And potassium permanganate also oxidizes sodium thiosulfate, hypo, to sodium sulfate and sulfur. See, here sulfur is in +2 oxidation state. Here sulfur is in +2 oxidation state. Here change it to +6 and this is -2. +2 to 0, +2 to 0 reduction, +2 to +6 oxidation. Right. So in this way, some properties of potassium permanganate in neutral medium can be studied. When it comes to alkaline medium, in alkaline medium, potassium permanganate is also called as Bayer's reagent. Okay. In alkaline medium, manganese changes from +7 to +6, where valency factor is 1. We already discussed in the flow chart in the previous slide. Now, these are the equations responsible for its oxidizing properties in basic medium. Okay. Now in basic medium, some examples: potassium permanganate oxidizes potassium iodide to iodate. These in particular, which is getting oxidized to what in which medium is to be remembered. Potassium permanganate oxidizes potassium iodide to iodate, where iodine is changing from -1 to +5, valency factor is 6, and manganese is changing from +7 to +4, valency factor is 3. Next, it also oxidizes Bayer's reagent. Already we studied in organic chemistry. Bayer's reagent also oxidizes ethylene to ethylene glycol. And even potassium permanganate is one of the strongest oxidizing agents that we can employ for the oxidation of alcohols directly to the carboxylic acids, right? And when it comes to the skeletal equation, potassium permanganate in sulfuric acid, in presence of acid, sulfuric acid dissociates in this way, giving K plus MnO3 plus bisulfate plus H3O plus. Okay, these are skeleton reactions responsible for its oxidizing properties. Similarly, potassium permanganate with excess concentrated sulfuric acid, excess potassium permanganate with concentrated sulfuric acid gives Mn2O7, which is an explosive oil. So sometimes they may ask these questions for other than NEET. Okay, next. NEET and JEE means other than those two examinations which are beyond NCERT some level. So these equations will be asked. When it comes to acidic medium, potassium permanganate thus dissociates to give potassium sulfate and gets reduced to Mn+2 MnSO4, leaving 5 moles of nascent oxygen, whereas potassium dichromate 3 moles of nascent oxygen. So acidified potassium dichromate and acidified potassium permanganate. From these two skeletal equations, there it is 3 nascent oxygen, here it is 5 nascent oxygens. From these two skeleton equations, one can say that potassium permanganate acts as the strongest oxidizing agent among those two. Next, when it comes to some equations, it oxidizes ferrous sulfate to ferric sulfate in acidic medium, of course. Sulfide to sulfur. Sulfur dioxide is oxidized to sulfuric acid. Sulfur dioxide is oxidized to sulfuric acid, that's the way to pronounce. And nitrite to nitrate, oxalate to carbon dioxide, etc. Oxalate to carbon dioxide, so on. So the next is about inner transition elements, means as they belongs to inner transition elements, they are called as inner transition elements, you are aware of. It contains two series, namely 4F and 5F series. 4F series members are cerium, praseodymium, neodymium, promethium, samarium, europium, gadolinium, terbium, dysprosium, holmium, erbium, thulium, ytterbium and lutetium. When it comes to 5F series, thorium, proactinium, uranium, neptunium, plutonium, americium, curium, berkelium, californium, einsteinium, fermium, mendelevium, nobelium, and lawrencium. You have to remember the elements completely and with their atomic numbers also. This is some 58 to 71 and this is 89 to 103. Okay, and another important area from NCERT about these elements is their electronic configuration, which element shows anomalous electronic configuration even in D block elements also, transition elements also. Every series has anomalous electronic configuration, elements with anomalous configuration, and their configuration also must be memorized. Definitely one question may be asked from that. If it is specified in NCERT, there is a scope for generating as a question. So in both the transition and inner transition elements, one has to be perfect in their electronic configuration, which is clearly differentiated there. Next, their common oxidation state is +3. In transition elements, +2 is the first common oxidation state, next common is +3. In inner transition elements, +3 is the first common, +4 is next common. And even that +4 also, stable way, in a stable way it will be pronounced in cerium, praseodymium and terbium. Cerium, praseodymium and terbium, rest all are again unstable. Next, among lanthanum Ln+3 ions, La+3 and Lu+3, lanthanum tripositive cation and lutetium tripositive cation, the first member, see for even lanthanum also will be considered in this series, La+3 and Lu+3, the first and last members in tripositive ions, first and last members are of a 0 electrons, so that's why they are diamagnetic in character. La plus 3 cation and Lu plus 3, lanthanum tripositive cation and lutetium tripositive cations possess no unpaired electrons, so they are diamagnetic in nature, whereas rest all are cerium and all other elements are paramagnetic because of having unpaired electrons. And when it comes to the density and melting points, they are really highly denser and possess high melting points, but there is no regular trend because of different crystalline structures. Fairly, their ionization potentials are low and are comparable with alkali metals, 1A group elements. And they do not have much tendency to form complexes. Transition elements have much tendency to form complexes because of their small size, more charge density, okay, small size, more charge density, etc. Even though here vacant orbitals are available, because of less charge density, as they are larger in size when compared with the transition elements. Because of large size, their charge density is less and they are unable to form complexes. Among these, lanthanides, the last one which is smaller in size, because of lanthanide contraction, there is a steady decrease in size of lanthanides, and due to actinide contraction also there is a steady decrease, and consequences also we have studied. So because of that reason, these smaller tripositive cations can only form complexes. And when it comes to reducing character, these acts as good reducing agents. And one more point to be noted here is nitrate, sulfate and perchlorate. Nitrate, sulfate and perchlorate of lanthanum, tripositive lanthanum and tripositive actinide cations are water soluble. Compounds are water soluble. Once again I am repeating, tripositive compounds of lanthanides and actinides, namely nitrate, sulfate and perchlorate are water soluble, whereas hydroxides, fluorides and carbonates of tripositive lanthanides and actinides are water insoluble. See, when it comes to coordination compounds, here we have subtopics like nomenclature, IUPAC nomenclature, isomerism shown by the compounds, Werner's theory of coordination compounds, and next is valency bond theory, crystal field theory, and methods of determination of crystal field splitting energy, etc. Now, some examples are in nomenclature. See, we know that cation first, anion next, all those rules we studied. As this is a revision session, one of the point to be recollected while solving this nomenclature question is such ligands where more than one donor atoms are there. In case if it is joined through nitrogen, that should be specified. It is tetrathiocyanato. This is thiocyanato and this is both are thiocyanato. Thiocyanato N and thiocyanato S. That must be specified while naming. And when it comes to stability of complexes in solutions, this is the formation of a complex, equation representing the formation of a complex. Stability constant can be given as products by reactants. Usually stability of a complex salt is directly proportional to stability constant. And more the electron density on the metal cation, more is the stability, stronger is the complex formed by the ion. For example, greater is the electron density on the donor atom of the ligand, stronger is the complex formed by it. Weak ligands, suppose water and ammonia, and strong ligands OH minus and Cn minus, using this we can justify this. Among halides, F minus, Cl minus, Br minus and I minus, even though they have same amount of negative charge here, charge density will be more pronounced in F minus because of its small size, and thus complexes formed by F minus are strongest among them. Similarly, application of organometallic compounds, ready formation of a nickel tetracarbonyl NiCO4 will get readily formed at 50 to 80 degrees Celsius and readily decomposes at 150 to 180 degrees Celsius. Because of this flexibility, it is used in the extraction of nickel in Mond's process. Similarly, these complex salts also have wide application in catalytic field. They can be used as homogeneous catalyst as well as heterogeneous catalyst. Homogeneous catalyst best example is Wilkinson's catalyst in the hydrogenation of alkenes. Similarly, heterogeneous catalyst means in the polymerization of alkenes like Ziegler-Natta catalyst, triethyl alkyl or trialkyl trialkyl aluminum and titanium tetrachloride. Actually, ethyl group will be employed here. Triethyl aluminum and titanium tetrachloride is one of the best example for heterogeneous catalysis. See, let us see some questions from these coordination compounds. First question is from nomenclature. So, name the following. So, it is alphabetically bromine is B starting with the ligand. This is amine, pentaamine, 5 amines. So, mono. So, pentaamine, monobromo, monobromido, pentaamine, cobalt 3. This is X minus 3 equal to 0, cobalt 3 sulfate. Similarly, when this name is given bromo pentaamine cobalt 2 nitrate, bromo pentaamine cobalt 2 nitrate. So, CO pentaamine monobromido nitrate, right. Cobalt is in +2 oxidation state. Similarly, when this dibromo tetraaqua chromium 3 chloride is given, chromium is the central metal cation, dibromo tetraaqua H2O taken 4 dibromido tetraaqua chromium 3 chloride. So, 3 minus charges. So, chromium is in +3 oxidation state. Likewise, when this is the question, state the kind of isomerism possible for, state the kind of isomerism possible for CrEn thrice whole power +3. Here, the structure of the given complex is, see, this is ethylene diamine, this is ethylene diamine, this is on a plane, and see, this is linked with the one going behind the plane, and this is the bond, this is the ligand coming front side of the board, this is another ethylene diamine. As it is connected with chelating ligand, it can show the non-superimposable mirror image concept, enantiomerism, and hence it can show optical isomerism. So, the first molecule can show optical isomerism because it will exhibit a non-superimposable mirror image concept. And when it comes to the next complex, CrNH3 taken for CrBr, Cr coordination number is 6 here also, CrNH3 taken 4. So, NH3, these 4 are assumed on a plane, whereas here Cl and here Br. So, this is said to be exhibiting cis trans isomerism, geometrical isomerism. So, first one is said to be exhibiting optical isomerism, and the next one is said to be exhibiting geometrical isomerism.